Hi Adam, we've already talked about Ibn Taymiyyah in another video. Tell me about Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab and the group known as the Wahhabi sect.
Yes, Omar. Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab appeared about 440 years after Ibn Taymiyyah. He was born in 1703 in Central Arabia. He was the founder of what later became known as the Wahhabi movement, a harsh revivalist ideology that claimed to restore pure monotheism. But in reality, it introduced extremism and violence into Islam. Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab allied himself with the tribal leader Muhammad ibn Saud, forming both a political and religious pact. This alliance became the foundation of what is now known as the Saudi state. His teachings centered on labeling Muslims who disagreed with him as mushrikeen or polytheists, accusing them of apostasy and permitting their blood, property, and families to be taken. Instead of uniting Muslims around the Quran, his ideology divided them and justified killing those who did not follow his interpretation of Tawheed. In my view, he was nothing more than a copy and paste version of Ibn Taymiyyah, another so-called scholar who built his beliefs on man-made hadiths instead of the Quran. What they promoted was not the Islam of the Quran, but a distorted religion founded on fabricated narrations. Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab labeled other Muslims as polytheists, mushrikeen, and called for their killing. Yet in truth, he was the greatest polytheist of all.
Wow, that's a strong claim, Adam, calling Abd al-Wahhab a mushrik or a polytheist.
As I've said in many videos, Omar, if your source of religion is anything other than the Quran, then what you practice is not the Quran's religion. Religions built on hadith books, whether from Sunni or Shia collections, produce a different system than the one described in the Quran. You are then a mushrik. You are simply associating Allah's book with man-made books, books that Allah never said and the Prophet himself never saw or approved. Like Ibn Taymiyyah, many of Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab's rulings and fatwas rest on two false assumptions that do not come from the Quran. First, they rely on the hadith that says, "Whoever changes his religion, kill him," reported in collections such as al-Bukhari. I've addressed in other videos the many Quranic verses that contradict this hadith. Second, their core definition of who is a Muslim is wrong. In the Quran, a Muslim is fundamentally a believer, one who affirms Allah as the only God, believes in the angels, the holy books, the prophets, and the day of judgment. So even if someone fails to pray, fast, or give zakat, the Quran still describes them as a believer, albeit one who will be held accountable for missed obligations. Their worship, or lack of it, affects their record of deeds, not their status as a believer. By contrast, in the systems promoted by Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Abd al-Wahhab, failing to perform certain acts can be judged as disbelief, rendering a person a kafir, and in some extremist interpretations, subject to execution. That rigid and exclusionary mentality became a theological basis exploited by militant groups such as Daesh. Therefore, many of the fatwas I will list in this video from Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab call for the killing of Muslims.
So what was Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab's ideology?
When you read Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab's writings, you get the impression that he saw himself as Allah's messenger on earth, as if his mission was to judge who is a believer and who is a disbeliever, and then issue rulings to kill those he labeled as such. It was always his way or no way. While I can agree that some of the practices during his time were wrong, sinful, or even forms of association with Allah, it was never his right or authority to declare Muslims as disbelievers, let alone to justify killing them. For example, in the book Al-Durar al-Sunniyah, Volume 10, Ibn Abd al-Wahhab declares, "Anyone who rejects the Tawhid we call to is a polytheist, even if he utters the Shahada and praise, and such people he rules must be fought and killed." He called for the blood and wealth of those he labels polytheists. Also in the same book, Volume 15, in the issues of jihad and apostasy, he wrote, "Whoever persists in polytheism after the warning shall be fought, his wealth taken as spoils, and his women made captives."
But isn't polytheism strictly forbidden in Islam? It's considered the greatest sin, right?
Yes, Omar, it absolutely is. Associating partners with Allah is the gravest sin in Islam. But what I'm saying is this: you can teach, remind, and guide people toward the truth, yet it's never your place to judge or kill them. Guidance belongs to Allah alone, not to anyone who appoints himself as the judge over others' faith. If I saw someone, whether Muslim or not, worshiping a cow or the sun, I could advise them that what they're doing is wrong and try to guide them toward the truth. But that's where my role ends. I have no right to judge or harm them.
I agree. And that aligns perfectly with the Quran and what Allah commanded Prophet Muhammad to do.
Exactly, Omar. In many verses, Allah made it clear that the Prophet's duty was only to advise and deliver the message, not to force anyone into Islam or judge people for their actions. Allah said in chapter 10, verse 99, "And had your Lord willed, all those on earth would have believed, all of them entirely. Then, O Muhammad, would you compel the people so that they become believers?" And in chapter 6, verse 52, Allah reminded the Prophet that people's accountability is not his concern. "And do not drive away those who call upon their Lord morning and evening, seeking his face. You are not accountable for them in anything, nor are they accountable for you in anything. So if you were to drive them away, you would then be among the wrongdoers." And in chapter 5, verse 99, Allah clearly states that the Prophet's role was only to convey the message. The messenger's duty is only to convey the message, and Allah knows what you reveal and what you conceal.
I see. That's why Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab and Ibn Taymiyyah are essentially the same. Both acted as if they were more than prophets, judging people's faith and issuing fatwas that led to their execution.
Exactly, Omar. I've mentioned this verse many times in our videos. Allah said in chapter 2, verse 256, "There shall be no compulsion in religion. The right course has become clear from the wrong. So whoever disbelieves in false gods and believes in Allah has grasped the most trustworthy handhold with no break in it, and Allah is hearing and knowing." And in chapter 18, verse 29, Allah said, "And say, the truth is from your Lord, so whoever wills, let him believe, and whoever wills, let him disbelieve." Faith must come from conviction, not force. Allah made guidance clear from misguidance, and every person must choose freely whether to enter or leave Islam. Let me end with this. Wahhabis never admit they are a sect. Like most sects, they believe they represent the only true Islam. But for us, those who follow the Quran alone, the truth is clear. There is no true Islam except through the Quran. Anyone who seeks guidance or judgment outside Allah's revelation is not following Islam, but a man-made religion. Allah said in chapter 45, verse 6, "These are the verses of Allah which we recite to you in truth. Then in what statement after Allah and his verses will they believe?"
Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed discovering the real Islam and found the information helpful.
Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you can continue learning more about Islam directly from the Quran.